It is now a little after 1. We will begin the first budget hearing for April the 3rd, 2014. Ms. Phyllis, we're going to let you start us off this year.
Thank you, Mayor. To begin with, you have copies of all the budget information for the general fund. We're going to be talking about that one today, and we'll be going through the revenues in each department that makes up the general fund. Would like to get started on revenues, and just want to highlight a few of the revenues that I see maybe some possible differences between last year and this year. If you look at your first page of your revenue sheet, we get our property tax information from the county. We use the assessed values to calculate that. Anticipate that to be at right around $7.6 million. We currently have collected year to date, I just looked at it before I walked into the meeting, about $7.4 million. So I don't anticipate a big increase for next year, so I think 7.59 or right at 7.6 million will be a good estimate for that. Going down through the delinquent property tax years, basically we just kind of estimate those. They're very low numbers. Do want to jump on down to the sales tax. If you'll look at the previous year's sales tax, our sales tax has been really good to us. We collected approximately $4.2 million last year. Looks like we're going to collect about 4.4 this year, and I'm being conservative in estimating that our next year budget will be about the same, which is 4.4. Going down through the other line items for the revenues, did not increase a lot of them, pretty much kept everything the same as previous years. Jumping down to close to the bottom of the page on the state income tax, that is our hall tax. You know, we've been told for years that that's going away, but I wanted to go ahead and put a little bit in there for that tax. Going to this page 2, in our Parks and Recreation revenue section, we did add 2 line items. One is for the league fees. You know, since we're now operating the league under the city, we wanted to include that in the revenue cycle for the league fees and for the concessions. Library is pretty consistent with the previous years. Don't anticipate any major increase there. Going on down to the court fines, we have seen a reduction in our city court fines and cost, so I wanted to make sure that we took that budget down to proper levels for 14-15, and that is at $325. Moving over to page 3, these are some smaller revenue streams of revenue. We've got interest, it's basically going to be about the same. A few grants, Old Timers Festival revenue that we get donations on, and pretty much those lines have all stayed about the same. For the total revenue for 14-15, I've estimated at $17.2 million. Now, on this sheet you have in front of you, there is also a total for expenditures, which are it's the backup. The backup for those expenditures are in the department sheets that we're fixing to start talking about. Basically, the departments have pretty much it's only their operating expense. There has been no capital items added to any department, and that total is coming to $17 million. Just a little over $17 million. So if we have $17.2 million in revenue and $17 million in expenses, that leaves us with a surplus of about $202,000. So that's basically what we have to look at. Looking at the very bottom line is the balances in our general fund bank account. At the end of June of last year, we had approximately $7.6 million. This year I'm anticipating we'll have about $7.1 million, and that is a great thing to say because we took $2 million out of our fund balance for the fire department, but yet we're only seeing an effect of about $543,000. That's actually going to reduce our reserves. So that is, a lot of that has to do with some of the extra revenues we've gotten in this year from sales tax, some of the expenses that we have been able to reduce. So that $500,000 instead of a $2 million hit to our fund balance is really going to help us look favorable to, any bond market or any future borrowing. And again, if I look at next year's budget, just based on this now, in those expenses, I have not included any capital or the other $2 million installment payment on the fire department purchase. So you've got to take into consideration, even though that's showing that we're going to put $202,000 back into fund balance, we haven't gotten to all of our capital or other expenses that departments have asked for. So basically, I'm trying to tell you that we have about $202,000 to work with. So moving on, let's go ahead and get started with our first department, and that's our legislative board. Now, we can go down through these line by line, or I can kind of highlight the differences between last year and this year. It's basically what you want to do. I can kind of highlight the difference between last year and this year is one of the major differences was in the health insurance, and that's generally due to an employee changing from single to family, or we've changed staff and the new staff had a different type of coverage. So that is the only change basically in the legislative is we had a change in the health insurance. You have a copy of the department, you have a copy of the wages and salaries and benefits page there. Going on to the next department, judicial, and please stop me if you have any questions. We did increase the judge's salary by $10,000, but we also reduced health insurance because we had a member that we changed an employee in this department, and that employee doesn't have family coverage. They have individual coverage, so it's kind of a flip-flop of what we had in the legislative. And that savings basically offset the increase from the judge's increase. So you have a copy of the wages and benefits for that department. Going on to city court, other than the incremental increase for wages, we did add a little bit extra for the traffic school, and we added extra for the traffic school material, which, all three of those made up a difference of about $11,000 in that department, of $11,000 increase. And again, that was due to the new traffic school requirements that we have implemented. Going on to the next department, city administrator. Didn't have any major changes in this department other than taking out the capital purchase of a vehicle from last year. So that was not rebudgeted, which was able to bring that budget back down to about $86,000. The next department is elections, and we have not budgeted anything for elections since we now run our elections in with, I guess it's the county, Bruce? Mm-hmm. We don't have any expenses there unless you think of something that we might need to include. City recorder is our next department. In this department, we have moved one person from public relations. From public relations to city recorder. So there's really no major increase here. We did move that person and all the other line items that go along with that. They did increase that budget by about $20,000. We actually had a person budgeted for this department last year. But that position was not filled. I think we moved that position to another department. So basically this was a wash when you take this department and the other department together. Tax department, we do have a big increase in this department, and that is mainly due to the property appraisals that are coming up this year. The fee for that is approximately $162,000, and we do get billed from the county for our portion of doing appraisals. Moving right along on the treasurer, which is the finance department. I did increase the local government because the maintenance has gone up on local governments, the software maintenance. We did decrease our health insurance because we did have an employee that was budgeted for family that was actually an individual. So that budget is actually down, even with the wage increase. And again, I don't think I mentioned this, but the basic wage increase, we use our step method, and pretty much we took everybody up a step, which is basically about a 3% increase. So that even with the 3% increase and the difference in the health insurance, that the treasurer budget is down about $3,000 over the previous year. Moving on to HR, no major increases here. We kept everything pretty much the same. We had the incremental increases for the different line items due to the wage increase. We did re-budget the other professional services, which is the $105,000. That may be something you guys want to discuss. In the prior year, this was a budget that was a line item that was set in there for errors and omissions from some cases that we had going with TML. Talked to Cheryl, and we're not real comfortable with reducing it because we do have several cases on our books, and if we do settle any of those cases, if it's, this is the line item where those cases will come out of. Last year, I think we had either one or two $25,000, I think it was two $25,000 cases that that we use this line item to cover. Anybody have any questions on that? Going on to the engineering, Kyle is not here, he's on vacation. Didn't make any major changes for his line items other than the wage increase. He kept everything pretty much the same. In our IT department, we had a couple of changes here. We increased the cell phone and telephone service. Talked to Glenn about that at great length, and he felt like that we need to go ahead and bump that up. We've got extra phones now and new phones, and kind of switching out some of the older phones that we have. And then, of course, we took out the capital item that was budgeted last year, $75,000. So with a wage increase, increase in the telephone line item, and taking out the capital from last year, his budget was reduced by about $33,000. Okay. Moving right along to planning. There was no change in this department. Line items are pretty much the same. I think she might have moved a little bit of money around, but she pretty much kept the total the same, other than the wage increase and the incremental increases that go along with that, the benefits. Codes department. In the codes department, Randolph did reduce his condemnation line by $36,000. There was no rebudget of any equipment, so therefore there was, a reduction there. He did reduce Connie's lawn care a little bit. I'm sorry, he did reduce the repair and maintenance grounds, which is basically Connie's lawn service. Other than that, everything's pretty much the same, but he did, reduce the condemnation line item on that budget. City Hall. I did increase the insurance line item on City Hall. Of course, we've added the fire department. But what I've also done is I'm now allocating some of the insurance costs to the stormwater. Generally, the insurance has been split between general fund and water and sewer. But we felt that, there are employees in stormwater, and stormwater is not getting hit with any of our insurance costs. So Bruce and I have talked about it, and we came up with some percentages. And we are allocating a small portion of the health insurance costs now. Not health insurance costs, but the property, liability, workers' comp insurance to stormwater. This offset quite a bit of the increase from adding the fire department. So we were able to kind of work on that. And after talking with Cheryl, and I think TML was here yesterday, we may have to revisit that. We're looking at some numbers with our exposure that we've had with the various lawsuits, and then adding, the fire department and adding all the equipment. We're going to be doing some new calculations in the next few weeks on that, and may even come up with a new insurance premium number. Hopefully, I feel pretty comfortable that I've built enough in there to cover any increases, but if they come back with something, out of the ordinary, I think they did say our exposure has went down some in a few areas. I think she said workers' comp, our exposure was down. I think, okay. Yeah. Okay, in our E&O, which is errors and omissions, we had incurred $337,000 loss last year, but they're saying in 2013 that we're at a $46,000 loss. So that's a reduction in the errors and omissions. In the liability, we had an incurred loss of $356,000 in 2012. In 2013, it's $61,000. So our liability has gone down. In our property, the property has went up. We only had $3,000 in claims in 2012. In 2013, we had $73,000 in property claims. Auto liability, we're staying pretty consistent there. We had a big hit in 2011 of 73. It came down to 73,000, sorry. It came down to 10,800 in 2012 and 7,700 in 2013. And that's for auto liability. Automobile physical damage is staying about the same. We've been at a little over $7,000 the last 2 years. So that's a little recap on our insurance. A lot of our rate is dependent on our exposure, and there's all kinds of formulas that they use, and they are gathering information now to assess our 2014-15 premium, and hopefully we'll have that information before the second reading. I don't think we'll have it before any of our next workshops, but we should have that information before our second reading, and if there is a significant change, I will inform the board. But hopefully we've got that covered. Our next department is the police department, and the chief is here with us today. I've highlighted to myself a few of the line items that are mentionable. One of them is in the wages area under regular. We're going to be up about $200,000 in that area. A lot of that has to do with some adjustments that were made to pay, some promotions. We have less unfilled positions this year, I think, than we've ever had. We're filling them quicker, and in the previous years we had some time lapses where there was, several months that went by that we didn't have some positions filled. But I think the chief is keeping his positions filled and refilled pretty good there. We did have to add some additional expense for the CAD system. We had to add the Comcast support, And we have annual maintenance now. I did go ahead and include the annual maintenance in his department, and I think that is 102, I want to say, is 123,000 a year for the annual maintenance on the,
After the first year, yes.
yeah, okay. That will probably come due toward the end of this next fiscal year.
We've also added the maintenance that we've had that's been going here and there for different things, where it's systems-based, but it's investigative. It's, instead of getting a publication or something, it's a service, so.
Right. We also added the travel, under the 259 other professional services, there is about $20,000 that was added to that line item for the New World travel. That was not included in the lease arrangements that we negotiated with SunTrust. They wouldn't allow us to include that in the financing, so we have in that line item the travel for the New World. The chief did reduce his motor vehicle repair line item a little bit, and he's reduced his building maintenance a little bit. Going down through here and looking at any other, we did reduce the Metro contract, which is the monthly radio, I don't know what you call it, radio, yeah, we did uniforms a little bit. But our radios, we had budgeted $90,000 last year, but looking at what we've paid this year, it's only going to come in about at $62,000, $63,000, so we've reduced that. Of course, we didn't have to budget for any capital, or we haven't budgeted for any capital yet, so his total budget is $5.7 million this year for 14-15.
There's only one thing, and I'm gonna talk to Phyllis about it later. There's only one thing that we may need to look at, and that's the overtime, because overtime was not increased percentage-wise as the wages, so we may have to look at that just a little. It's about 17,000 different if we.
And a lot of that too, of overtime, we get reimbursement from GHSO, but you don't see it here.
Also the private. We did SINRAM,
Right.
and that was over $5,000 that they reimbursed us for, where we
Right.
assigned officers to work there overtime. And they reimbursed, so it doesn't show.
Right.
And a couple of others, Saks did that. We did it with them last year.
We had about 3, I think, this year
Yeah.
that did a little overtime. So out of that $318,000 forecast for overtime, there's some reimbursements that you'll see in the revenue line item that doesn't get to hit this department and reduce that, so that does cause him to have an increase in his. Any other questions about the police?
We need to make one notation, the crime analyst position, it's a grade 8 instead of a grade 7.
Is it
The
on?
evidence tech is the 7, but the the position, the analyst is separate. It's an 8.
It's an 8?
It's an 8 instead of a 7.
Okay.
It's an 8, the crime scene is a 7, which is Andrew's old one, so.
Andrew's old job
Okay.
is a 7,
Okay.
but the analyst position that was already vacant, that we just had not posted, and it's
Okay.
now posted, it's an 8.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Now-
what happened on that one is when we pulled together all of the job description info and then it was reviewed,
By Steve Thompson.
yeah, that's where that came from, because we really hadn't had that before.
Okay. Okay. I'll make that
For
change.
the 8?
I'll make that change on
Okay.
here. Okay.
It won't affect it greatly, but a little.
Okay. Our next department is the fire department. I've worked with Ricky, and of course, we don't have a lot of data to look back on historically for the actual line item expenses, but Ricky and I have looked over this and have discussed lots of numbers, and we've looked at the first 3 months that we have had the fire department and compared that to what we have anticipated for next year, and I think we have a pretty good handle on it. You know, we'll make changes as we go, and you know, this budget only includes, it does not include any of the apparatus that Ricky is asking for, and it doesn't include the $2 million payment that we'll be making next year. We'll discuss that when we talk about our capital / other request budget. If we have any questions on any of the line items, you can talk to me or Ricky, either one. As far as the wages, we were quite perplexed with the wages part of this because from my understanding, the wages are being reevaluated or retested, and we don't know exactly what person's going to play what position. So if you'll notice on the sheets that back up, the wages are kind of unusual looking. I do have everybody listed, but as far as what their position's going to be for next year, I didn't match those up to any specific person. I left that blank. My goal here was to try to make sure that I had covered 3 captains, you know, 6 or 7 lieutenants, however many engineers they wanted, and however many firefighters. The only positions we know of for sure are the chief and the 2 assistant chiefs. Now, we did put the correct wages in for all of the different categories, the captains, the lieutenants, and engineers and firefighters. We just don't have a name for those positions yet. So if it looks confusing to you,
Okay, I do have a question.
okay?
Our starting salary for a firefighter is 34, 34.2.
It will be July 1st. Mhm.
Okay, all right. And so we will be adjusting those here, because I'm not showing the adjustment.
Correct, they're adjusted in July.
Okay, I just want to make
Yes,
sure
yes,
we're
ma'am.
right.
If you remember when we were talking, because of all of the moving, the restructuring,
Yeah.
and everything, we talked to all of the fire personnel when they first come over to let them know that they would be given these auxiliary duties between January 1st and the end of June. We would be doing our tests and our promotions and all of that, and all of that would be no additional pay. So, because it was not in a budget anywhere for us to do that, there was no way for us to do it. They all agreed that they were perfectly fine with that. That was all part of the transition package when we did that.
I guess,
So-
I just kind of stunned me when I saw what some of the actual, as people were asking me what our starting rate, I'm like, 34?
Right.
And I'm like,
And I will tell you, some of the
There's no
numbers that you see,
37.
I think what you see it reflected to you in front of you.
yeah,
We had some firefighters that were, the last 2 hirings 2 years in a row, we had some firefighters that were told what their starting rate of pays would be. They've been here 2 years now, and they're not even at that now. Now, that's of no fault of the city, that wasn't a private fire. They were told they would be making 31.5. As you can see, we've had firefighters now making 29 still after 2 years. So,
yeah, 26.
correct. So, all of those numbers had to be fixed as well. So if it looks like some people are getting astronomical raises,
No,
that's not the
24.
case at all. They were never given what they were originally told they were going to be receiving.
That's just why I wanted to make sure that reflected over here. I just want to make sure.
And that was why, as she said, the rank structure is being worked on as we speak. So those positions will have names accompanying with them, but the number of positions, Phyllis has got those all correct at this point.
Yeah. And we do have the 11 that we're going to be adding in July on here,
Okay.
along with benefits. And we generally, when we budget for this, we go ahead and budget them as if they're going to have family coverage, just because we don't want to budget single and then get hit
Right.
with a big expense. So we have budgeted everybody with the family coverage for those new hires. Emergency services are our next department. Pretty much kept everything the same. There was a few line items that we moved to the fire department, like supplies and materials, the clothing, operating supplies. I'm sorry, operating supplies we moved. The hazmat, we did line item, we did leave here. We've got the rescue squad in here. We've got the rescue squad's clothing and uniforms in here also. It's the $3,000. That's what's under the clothing and uniforms.
And we left hazmat over in emergency services because it's a unified team of personnel for police, fire, and public works. But the state also requires, if we ever do go for that accreditation, they require that we have a total separate line to show that that is a funded entity all of its own. So that was the reason that we left it. Even though fire takes a primary role and responsibility in that, it is a unified team between the SWAT team members. We pull stuff out of that. Chief makes sure that I do that. Gas masks, things like that, because that is related to the meth stuff and all of that comes out of that hazmat line item as well.
Okay, and then the 5,000 that's underneath, that's also for the rescue squad's gas, am I correct?
Yes, that's correct.
There's $48,000.
Yes. And we did re-budget for the Code Red, where we have one more year contract with that. So next year we'll be looking at that. That pretty much concludes the emergency services. Our next department is streets. Basically, left this department pretty much the same. We had, the incremental wage increase in benefits. Of course, we're not budgeting for a truck this year, and we're not re-budgeting for the work order system. We do have some maintenance on that work order system, and that has been budgeted in the repair and maintenance service line. So that pretty much no major increases there. Our next department is fleet. We have no major increases here. A little bit of a reduction in the health insurance due to, an employee that we budgeted for was going to have family and actually have individual single coverage. Pretty much all the line items we've kept the same. Did take out the work order system because we're not re-budgeting for that. Overall budget decrease is about $20,000 on that one. Our next department is culture, and the only thing that makes up our culture department is that this is where we budget for our nonprofits. And behind the department sheet, you have your list. This is one we probably need to discuss. What I've done here, you have 4 columns. One is what we budgeted for in 12-13, one's what we budgeted for in 13-14. I have a column for the requested amounts for 14-15. This is what they actually submitted and have asked from the city. And then I have the budgeted column for 14 and 15 that we can make changes to as needed. What I did here was under the mayor's direction is pretty much budget everybody the same 14-15 as we did for 13-14. With exception, we need to discuss the Christmas line item that the chief used to have in his police department budget. He had a $3,000 line item in his budget for Christmas for kids and seniors, where the police department would take money, the $3,000 plus a lot of other money, and go out and buy gifts and toys for kids. This year he's requested that to be removed. He felt like it needs to be on the nonprofit list. There's a little bit of confusion on here because whenever I've talked to Kevin Stalinsky about this, since they don't really have, their organization is really not for distributing toys or buying toys. There's all he was able to provide me was a copy of the 501c3 for the FOP Youth Services and a copy of his request letter, because he doesn't have any kind of financial that supports any kind of nonprofit that's designed for just donating, collecting and donating. And I don't know how.
It's a general thing. That's where they do the things like for boxing, et cetera, with that 501c3. But what we've done in the past, the money that FOP takes in, donations that's for the Christmas, then that goes back out through that 501c3, if that makes sense.
Does it go through the youth services, or do they have another 501c3?
There are two.
They
There are
have
two
two?
different accounts that are there.
Does he, but I don't think, does he currently use the youth services to do?
I couldn't tell you. I'm
There's-
a member of FOP, but I don't do that stuff.
I was confused as to how we were gonna handle this, because,
My point is, we don't need to be in the business in the city's budget of doing that. It should be a contribution to a 501c3 of some sort to handle that. We still do it, we'll still work to do it and ask people to help with it, help deliver, et cetera, but we don't need to be doing that out of the police department city budget. That's given me heartburn ever since I've been here. Because when I first got here, there was absolutely no
toward the
accountability and
back,
all
he
kinds of
has a
issues.
copy of his banking, I think, activities or something for the
Ta-da.
youth services. And then the very last one should be the request for,
Yeah.
I'm not, we are already contributing $5,000 to the Laverne boxing. But I put this on there as a separate line item.
Okay, here's the thing. Well, here's my question, as they've never actually, the Christmas for Kids always fell under the police, so they, would next year, could they do?
So there's
And-
nothing in their charter that deals with toys or food drives or anything like that. My concern is the documentation, because they have to do an audit, a financial plan, all
Or
of that kind of
budget,
thing.
something.
They don't have any of that when it comes to the food or toy drive. To me, it would be simpler to leave it as an expense. Whether it's under police department or somewhere else, I think that could still be debated. But I don't see it as a nonprofit donation.
We can account like this year, the way we handle it was using the card specifically for, and Tony documented and kept copious notes and receipts, et cetera, and it was paid for with the city card, that portion of it that wasn't donation. And the donation stuff then came through the FOP side, if
So
that makes sense.
What you're saying is exactly what I'm saying. It's an expense. It's not a donation to the FOP.
Right,
So if you're using a city credit card, that's an expense.
yeah. And that's kind of what bothered me about it. It's,
Okay, well, here's my question. Can we make that donation to the FOP, but nothing can, this Christmas can't come out of the police? Everything would have to go through the FOP. See what I'm saying? That we make that contribution, $3,000 to the FOP, but come Christmas, we can't do anything.
Right, because we took that.
And
and that's what I said I'd love to
Yeah.
see.
Yeah,
Nothing from the city budget, and I understand where
They would have to
Bruce
make all
coming
of the
from.
purchases and everything, and it would not be able to go through.
Right.
our-
But
That's
here-
correct.
but here's my question. Once we make that donation to a nonprofit, it's not our place to be able to explain. It then becomes their
We
place,
don't control it then.
as they have to answer for it. See what I'm saying? All we're doing is making a simple donation to that for their Christmas.
As long as that falls under the purview of what they have said for that 501c3 designation for that account,
That's my concern.
yeah.
We just, yeah, need to make sure that that would fall under there.
On their 501c3, Cena, that you have there, does it describe what their activities are or anything?
That upon your application for the tax, that's tax exempt.
That's it.
Is that it? That's
That's
the one I
it.
want? Okay. Required to receive taxable, deductible, visits, devices, transfer, or gifts under section 205, 201. So we'll have to look up what all those sections are. Would help you resolve any questions. Organizations exempt under this for the code are further classified as either public charities or private foundations. We determine that you are a public charity. I would think that public charity right there would, but I don't know all the codes, so we'd have to go look under those sections that they just gave us. But a charity, I would think Christmas for Children is considered a charity. But those are just, if that's the case, and they've been in existence, they have their 501c3, then we would be making a simple donation to that, which we know they're going to use it, I mean, because that's the ones that do it at Christmas.
Well, it's kind of like the Special Olympics thing that we just did, where fire did it from what they still have, and then FOP did it through the
Right.
FOP
And we-
account.
And we are still looking at trying to do that. We're trying to clarify and make sure that all of our 501c3 stuff is correct as well.
Yeah,
The one,
Because we've got some firefighters wanting to make donations through payroll to do that and also, and we're gonna continue to keep doing that, but right now it's so disorganized.
yeah.
But at a certain point, we will be joining in to do this hand in hand, all as one thing. So,
one thing that I would recommend if we, make this donation to them is that they keep records.
Yes.
And next year when we get their financial, we should see information on there where they purchased.
And how much, yeah,
Toys.
yeah.
Because right now, if you look at that, I doubt that there's anything on there. So where did they purchase what they purchased last year?
They didn't, the police department did.
But you
Well,
said,
no.
Okay.
He said they,
3,000 of it came from there, but all the other stuff that was coming went through FOP.
Oh, okay.
so did it go through this FOP or did it go through?
Yeah,
their
it
other-
went through Lodge,
the-
what is it,
the youth service-
285, 289?
The youth services one?
That's a Kevin, Mary Ann question, because Mary Ann.
Yeah, it's got the boxing, but it doesn't have, I see
Doesn't
what
have
you're
any-
saying.
We should be able to see that activity on that report next year,
Yeah.
if it's done
If
properly.
if they're gonna do it through that one, yes.
So we can just explain that to him.
That it'll have to be
That's
done.
why that's
Yeah.
why we need an umbrella 501c3 here in
Yep.
the city of Laverne.
They told us we couldn't get
Yeah,
one
we're
as a
told,
city.
we're told we don't need one.
But yeah, yeah,
We need an organization that's a 501c3
Yeah.
here in the city, not the city,
yeah,
in the city.
yeah.
I think that would save, I think we could pull all of these things into that one. And right
Yeah.
now, it's just so skewed all over
You
the
know-
place, it's hard for anybody to know what's going on. And
If we
where
had
it's going,
one-
how it's going.
If we had one, we could have one set up to take donations from water bills to help out with
Yeah,
citizens with stuff like that. and
okay.
that.
So we're just,
I think we're good. We're just going to require them to make sure they run it through.
yeah, next year they'll have to have the proper documentation for us to continue to
And
make
what-
that to them.
And what we can do next year is instead of them asking for 5,000, it could be 8,000 with it. And in their request, they can say 5,000 of this is going to be used toward boxing and 3,000 is going to be
3,000
used.
for toys, yeah. Okay.
And I can talk to Kevin about that to make sure that,
And then also,
yeah, if you'll look, there was, lots of increases that they had asked for. Of course, Paul's submitted their request. They're wanting 29,500. Meals on Wheels, MCHRA, they are requesting 500 more for transportation, 250 more for homemaker. Smyrna Laverne Assistance Coalition is asking for 7,000. We've been giving them 3,500. Smyrna Laverne Food Bank is asking for 6. We've been giving them 3,500. CASA is asking for 3,000. We've been giving them 1,500. Child Advocacy Center is asking for 10. We've been giving them 5. Box 100 is asking for 25. We've given them 15 in the last couple of years. Read to Succeed is asking for 5. We haven't been giving them anything in the last couple of years. Of course, we've got the boxing for 5. The health department is asking for 4. That's generally what we give them. RTA is asking for actually about $300 less. They're wanting 24.5. Chamber of Commerce is asking for the same thing that we donated to them last year. Crime Stoppers is asking for 2,500. We haven't been donating to them. And then, of course, the FOP.
And I will say with box, on these, the majority of our scenes that's on, if it's on a long scene, you're looking at anywhere from $200 to $300 a scene. And that's because they're supplying food or whatever, and we've had several of those this year. Also, I'll remind this board, I have absolutely nothing to do with the money on that. I'm just the water boy. So, but I do know that the fuel, running those generators for hours and hours and hours. I'm not saying that the 25, but I would like to see them, because every single penny of this goes right back in to whether it's Public Works, Parks and Rec, police, or fire. Actually, all you're doing is putting money in there to make sure that that food or gas or whatever they need is on those scenes when they need it.
I mean, we even gave donations, as I said, out of our nonprofit, we went back in and gave donations to Box this year to feed our own selves. So regardless of where it comes from and how it goes there, it's a definite need for it to be there. Like you said, I don't know if we can do $25,000, but I mean, I think they deserve some kind of increase there of some kind, because they do. They take care of everybody, and it's not just emergency services, it's the public as well that are involved in these events.
Too, if y'all want, I can make you a printout. They actually gave every run, everything that's the times, the dates. They help with the toys for tots or the children. Well, basically anything that they're asked to do from any department, if it's where they can do it, they do it.
They're doing our standby for agility. So, I mean, anything you ask for, we receive from them.
Well, they're there too for the Old Timers Parade
Blocking
and
those
Festival.
roads.
They're there for the
Yep.
Howl at the Moon. They're there for Christmas Parade. They help us block intersections. I mean, they're there for every single one of those.
So, like I said, I understand at this board, but I do think they need some kind of,
Yeah, National Night Out.
I mean, we host 12 different events at the park a year. That's a rough estimate in there to every one of them, so.
and that all comes out of this money. Anything that we use comes out of this money.
What they had 24, about 2 years ago. 2 years later, that's not out of line.
So you're saying put them back at the 24?
I'm saying, why not give them 25? I mean, it's like Ricky said, it's going right back to the city. I mean, that's, I think we kind of said that last year, and I know we had, we talked about it a little bit, we didn't do anything extra. But if we can afford to, why not give them this kind of money?
Okay.
So you want to change that to 25? Is that what
We'll see if it passes, yeah.
Did I say something about child advocacy at this point, or do I need to wait later
No, you can say.
No.
to explain it? Sharon DeBoer had sent a copy of the letters to me and Phyllis for you and the board. And where Child Advocacy Center is coming from, there's been a lot of cuts at the federal and state level, particularly the federal level, with the support they've gotten. These are hybrid agencies that work with various agencies to kind of pull together, both with the DA's office, law enforcement, DCS, and then the support groups too. The one big thing that they provide for us that helps, that we have used an awful lot, and you heard me say the other night, child abuse, and we have our fair share, believe me, of child abuse, especially from a sexual nature. When when children are interviewed, we can't have just a detective sit down with them. The detective can sit behind the scenes and listen and watch. You have to have a trained forensic interviewer for that child to ensure they're not led in any way or talked into anything or get them to say something they shouldn't say. They have trained people there. They don't pay them a lot of money, but these people come to us and they sit with these children with some of the most heart and gut wrenching. We had a man here that we were able to put in jail and put away who had abused his 6-year-old daughter. And I need to ask here, I want to be careful, is this one recorded?
Yes, it is live.
Okay. I'll have to be careful how I say this then. There was a biological father, because I refused to call him a daddy, who had abused his own 6-year-old daughter, who made a comment in a car one day on the way to school. And as a result, we found out about it, thank goodness. And because of that forensic interviewer, we were able to get the information we needed to put him where he should be. He doesn't need to have contact with that child ever again, in my opinion, and he should never get out. He will someday. But that's what Child Advocacy Center does for us. And it gives information in their documentation, and I would ask every member of this board to read it. Yes, that's more than they have gotten from us. The reason they're asking, they ask all of us to do it, all the agencies, all the cities, county government, et cetera, because of some of the cuts that they've had from other areas. But they provide that service for us that affect some of our most vulnerable citizens, and that's our babies, our kids. And that's the reason that I said what I did, so that you all have an idea of what they do for us, not just that they're out there and may need some help. And if you want to know more about it later, I can tell you a little more specifically what that situation was, and you would want to take them out somewhere and have a blanket party, I assure you, if not worse.
And I believe they're the organization that we get an invitation every year at Christmas, that they have a open house and invite city officials to attend to get, to learn more about their organization.
Not only did they do the forensic interviews, they also sponsor and provide a lot of training for law enforcement and other groups too, when it comes to child abuse and everything involved in it.
Yeah. What is the wishes of this board?
I said give it to another 5,000. Is that what they're asking for, to double?
Additional 5,000,
They had asked last year for 75, I think it was, wasn't it?
I don't have that number in
And
front of me.
I think that's right, and we increased it from 35 to 5 last year.
Okay. And then what's the-
Do we want to attempt to increase that to?
We can put it on there for right now.
Okay.
We may have to negotiate some
Okay.
on all these that,
Can I ask
See-
you a question? The actual amount 2 years ago that we donated to non-profits was much higher than what we're budgeting right now. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. So, I mean,
Chamber of Commerce.
Most of
Well,
it's
it's-
changed.
We cut them in half.
Okay.
Yeah,
And pop.
and at one time wasn't Rescue Squad in this?
they're now on a contract.
Right, but I'm saying at one time, a couple years ago, weren't they in
They
here
were
as well?
over here, yeah.
We stopped contributing to Paul's. We reduced box 100, yeah, we reduced box 100 too
Yeah,
over
but
the
that
years.
first year, if y'all remember, we were struggling.
And that's it. I mean, but we've somewhat turned the corner. I know that you don't want to hear that, but we're doing a lot better than we were 2 years
yeah.
ago. So I believe we got the room to give some of these. I mean, you could say the same thing for like Meals on Wheels. I mean, I'd love to run more, but they're not really requesting it. But
And y'all can look over these, it's just the
Yeah.
first one, if y'all,
Yeah. Okay, if we move on to Parks and Rec, I'll try to hit the highlights. I guess the first change I would like to talk about is line item for water. Apparently, we have found a water leak and have had it fixed. AC and I were talking about this, that the water usage has gone way down, and he said he does remember there being some repairs done, so apparently we had some leaks that's been going on for quite a while, so hopefully we've got that fixed now, and that's going to be a big savings, and he,
And that was under the concrete at U-Trip, and Garland and his guys came out, and we were able to repair that in-house, and plus since then too, we've also skinned those other 4 fields up there, so that's gonna cut down the irrigation on the infield there, so that's gonna save a little bit too.
okay, he did request that his line item for repair and maintenance service be increased from 26 to 35. And if you'll look at the prior year, 12-13, he spent $36,000. So there's obviously a need there for more maintenance work. Other line items, he pretty much left the same until we get down here into toward the end. We moved some line items down. He has requested that his programs and music funding be moved down to just programs, which is under $850. And he also moved the savings from the water. He moved that budget down into the $850 for programs. We did add in the expenses for the softball league and the concessions, and that, of course, is offset by the increase in the revenues, so that's a net nothing on that one. We won't be revisiting the senior baseball field, or we took out the budget that was in there for last year for the senior baseball field and the equipment, so that's basically the changes for Parks and Rec. Any questions? Moving on to the library. If you'll notice the bottom line, there's not a whole lot of changes here. Donna did request that some of her funding.
I got a
Go back.
question.
Okay.
Question, sorry, I'm still on Parks and Rec.
Okay.
All right, with our senior program, we're busted at the seams. Are you considering hiring another full-timer at the senior?
Well, I am considering it, but the need is gonna be when we get that other building built.
Okay.
Because if I came by there today, bingo is slammed, the whole parking lot all the way to the road is full. It's
Yeah.
getting bigger and bigger, the new staff's doing a great job, and it's growing. I mean, and, we're gonna have to have at least another full-time person, because Cassidy can't tackle it all by herself, and on Wednesdays, that's the only day she has to catch up and do shopping. And it's just, it's a lot, it really is, so.
I just know that we had discussed that.
You and I did discuss that.
And I didn't know if you had gone on and put that in and asked him for it. I just didn't know.
Well, I'd like to ask for it. I don't want to, hamstring myself by trying to get too much, since I asked for a maintenance person too. But, we could definitely use one, But the thing is about that is the budget, does that affect my budget, the seniors' budget, or is that going to be something separate?
That's what we need to ask Bill.
Yeah.
It will affect the Parks and Rec budget.
Okay.
Now, we can increase the allocation to seniors, but we all know that if we increase the expenses for seniors, it's already struggling.
Well, I assure you, after this year, that you're going to see some return down there, because we've already started with the fundraisers and things that we've done already, there's already, we deposited, I think, $877 this past month, and I don't remember us doing that ever. I mean, since Donna was there at least,
Or
you
even
know.
when I was there, was it?
So, which is really good, and we're getting a lot of donations of foods and services, and you know, it probably won't be enough, but it's gonna help out a lot, so.
Any more questions on that, Mayor?
No.
Okay. Going on to the library. Not a lot of changes here. Donna did request some money to be moved around from one line item to the other. One of the examples is on the subscriptions to newspapers and periodicals, which is line item 233. She requested part of that money be moved down into her programs. Other than that, we just have some incremental increases due to the wage increase. That's about it. Moving on to economic development. This one basically is our expenses for our different conferences that the board members go to, some ISCS memberships. Of course, we have the largest expense in this department is the consultants' retail strategies. This year, that expense is only $20,000, and I think next year the expenses will be $20,000. We got the ICSC travel, and of course the meals and expenses that go along with that. So that budget actually came down a little bit this year. The next budget department is public relations. This is a department where we moved an employee to the recorder department. Of course, that's where you'll see a reduction in the total. Other than that, we pretty much kept the line items the same. Other than we didn't rebudget as much for the Channel 3 equipment. That was a improvement that was made this year that we don't have to rebudget for. That's the differences in that department. Moving on to debt service, the basic only change here was, of course, the new payment for the radio console. There's typos in there, Bruce. We did have to add the principal and interest payments for the new console system. That's pretty much the only changes in that. Moving on to the operating transfers. This is where we actually move money from the general fund to any other department that has needs. We didn't change the drug fund. We're still transferring $30,000 to the drug fund, and we've got $45,000 going to the seniors. We don't have to transfer any money this year for the capital projects parks. That was the Greenway, and we've taken care of that transfer this year, so we should be good on that. So that was okay. That is basically all of the what I call operating expense. And these, I mean, what we have discussed is the basic bare minimum that we have to have, that the departments need to operate. That's to a tune of, we discussed earlier, a little over $17 million. Now, we do have the capital and other requests here. Do you want to go ahead and start looking at that, since we have a little bit of time?
Sure.
I mean, I think this is something that you're going to have to absorb anyway, so I think if we go down through this list and look at it, and then maybe you can take it from this meeting and go over it thoroughly, and just, if you want to have discussions with any of the department heads about items, you can. I'll go down through here and we'll talk and just kind of give you an overview of what changes. I went ahead and put a column in here for what was actually requested last year for the 14-15 budget year, and then of course we have new requests for the 14-15 budget year, because obviously things change. We've had a change in directors, and they have different wants and needs or different views for their department. So with that being said, I'd like to just go through, of course, in the city hall, we've had lots of conversations about as the city grows and the needs assessment and, you know, the possibility of new buildings later on. Bruce has requested some funds be set aside for the needs assessment. And also, he has requested the Powerhouse Energy Saver System to a tune of $115. Another item that Bruce had mentioned was possibility of another special census. It's been, I can't remember, Bruce, when the last census, it's been a good 3.
We haven't done a special census, I think, since 2007 or 2008.
Has it been that
It's been a
long?
long time.
The federal census was the last one that we've had. We can do up to 4, I believe, in between the federal census. So that would really affect us as far as the state shared taxes with us more than anything. Now, obviously, we don't know how much we've grown since 2010. But, you know, any extra sure would help.
Going on down to HR, Cheryl has asked for $2,000 for expenses associated with the health and wellness fair. It's going to be in October, I think, this year. She also has some other recommendations, and one of those being the RFP for the to change consultants or to look at our benefits program. And also, she's been thinking about and looking at a human resource computer software package where she can track more information on employees. The current system we have, local government, they don't actually offer an HR system. And a lot of the things we're doing, we do have a system, what's the name of it?
It's old and
Yeah.
antiquated, and
It's probably 15 years old, and we can't upgrade it anymore because the operating systems have changed so much. So we're very limited as far as what we can do.
and it will not be compatible with the new computer needs that we have in place. Joanne needs a new computer, Vaughn needs a new computer, and Optima will not convert over. So we have to do something in lieu of.
Cheryl's also looked at some employee online training. Is this, I'm not sure who this is through.
It was through Target Solutions, and Chris Clark has also talked with the representative of a great program. Not only is it safety-based, it's more managerial, your sexual harassment, your diversity training, your HIPAA, your safety, wellness, ethics training, just a host of things that can all be done online. In talking with TML, they're encouraging that we try to implement something that will help bring our errors and omissions down, the amounts that they're projecting for us, and hopefully we can look at some things. The representative has given some preliminary quotes. However, of course, we would have to bid this out, but we anticipate being able to bring something in, and it'll be consistent and fair in our delivery of training. They also have modules that are specific to fire and police, public safety. And again, so you can carve out and make your own program. But a lot of the expense can be defrayed by grant proposals as well. So just thinking along that line. And if it doesn't happen this year, that's fine. It's we can work toward next year if need be. But it's just something that would be user friendly.
We just wanted to document it so that we would keep this in mind.
But they
you
look
know.
for grants.
Right.
I mean,
The grants can help defray the expense of this. And they have driving safety grants out there, and we're already participating with a lot of the programs. So it can offset the cost there. And same way with the computer software packaging.
Another area of discussion that has been tossed around, and that was the longevity/milestone award increase. She wanted to make sure that we still were thinking about that, and, just wanted to let the board know what the cost of that would be. I don't know all the details of what was discussed in that, but,
Fresh in my memory.
That was the discussion we held last fall about increasing the longevity or the milestone award for the employees. We had a discussion and we said, well, we did not have the money to implement a change at the time. We would still have to go in and adjust the budget, but to bring it back in consideration as we move forward. There's a $700 cap on longevity.
And that's pretty standard across the board. I've checked into that and we did that, and that's pretty standard. That amount. I mean, yeah. I mean, with the pay increases, our insurance benefits, I mean, we gotta do some juggling here. You'd rather have your longevity or your benefits. I prefer to get your benefits. I think that's a long range, but even when we started that, I looked around at some other cities, and actually even in longevity, we're pretty generous. So.
And we do want to look at our benefit consultant piece, and again, we don't anticipate an increase in what we're doing. With the RFP process, we're hoping that we're going to be able to reduce that amount tremendously by a consultant, through the workshops and the bidding process. So there should be some savings there when we finish up, but again, it's nothing, hard fast that we have to do.
we, in addition to what she's talking about there, we pay health costs a pretty hefty premium each month just to manage our claims. And from what I understand, that if we initiate an RFP to get some bids on this, that it will reduce, they say that they can reduce that cost to us. And if that's true, then it would be a big savings. Because I think we're paying them $40-something thousand a month just to manage our claims.
And the agencies that we work with the initial RFP are telling us that they can reduce those amounts. They need a little bit more structure, time to look at some of the figures. And the RFP committee will regroup next week, because we really need to start honing in on this now. Because again, there's a timetable. Our benefits enrollment fair will be November 13th. And in looking at this, we really need to make a decision if we're going to make some changes by August in order to get everything rolling on time.
Well, Health Cost is not real good at working with other insurance companies.
No.
At all.
And we have, again, we have some meetings scheduled, and we're looking at some other options and programming for that. Time for some change.
One of the main big areas that health costs really hits us hard at and that's in the stop-loss premium. I think it's over $300 a month per employee that we put into a pool. I mean, it's basically going into a pool, and then when we have claims that are over $40,000, then that's where those claims get paid. And again, in addition to paying the premiums to health costs to manage our claims each month, we also reimburse them for any claims that they actually pay on behalf of the city. So they're getting a pretty good chunk of money from us. If we're moving on down to IT, Glenn is on vacation this week, but he did have some requests. Of course, he would like to see, in addition to his staff, an IT system specialist, a fat pipe broadband device, and some domain controllers. That was his request.
Yeah.
Okay, there was,
I'd say strike the newbie. And I know we were having to have some stuff for all of our new communications. Is that the fat pipe part of that? Okay. Because I know I heard some talk about we're gonna have to do something.
That was a Comcast thing we did so that we could have the pipeline running in and out of that building
Okay, I knew I heard pipeline.
straight out
Okay,
because of the amount of data that's gonna be back and forth between us and Murfreesboro, 911 center, et cetera, with the GIS mapping back and forth and back and forth. We don't have it stored over here on a server. It goes to Murfreesboro and back, either county, GIS, or to 911.
but that's not what this is right here.
No,
That's-
no, that.
No, that was
let
budgeted
me-
in the police
let-
department.
Let me tell you part of the problem we've got now. We only have 2 megabytes, correct me if I'm wrong, 2 megabytes for the entire city of Laverne. We needed a minimum on the average of 60 to 70 for CAD RMS. So that's why we went ahead and went with a 100 meg pipeline, because with next gen 911, it will eventually open it up to text messaging, to social media connectivity with 911, to even sending pictures and video into the dispatch center, so that you actually have information coming in on a phone. If they've got it on and their face is coming to you, we're gonna have to have something to handle that stuff too. 2 megs won't even provide the entire city what we need. That's why when you try to do something, send something, open something, you can't. It takes forever sometimes because we all compete for that bandwidth. You can try to open up a 1 meg PDF file for whatever reason, and it may take it 2-3 minutes to open because it's competing for bandwidth from somebody over here or over there, and that's everything we have. That's what he's wanting. He's wanting to increase what we're gonna be able to do.
All right.
Let's hold off on changes to this one until when he can be here to
Yeah.
explain
Yeah.
what these are for.
But you can mark off the extra this year, sorry.
I know they're slammed, they need it pretty bad.
I know, but
Moving on to the library request, they have asked for a part-time library clerk, 3,000 for ebooks, and 2,000 for a family program, community outreach program. Our next area is economic development, which this was one that was, we put on this list, but it's actually already included
yeah.
in our budget. We've already budgeted for it because we have to pay it because
Right.
we're already committed. Streets, going on down to streets, they've asked for a tractor, $38,000, a truck, $30,000, the salt barn at $75,000, shed for equipment at $60,000, arrow boards for $38,000. And I believe Garland is here if y'all have any questions.
What are we cutting?
I think on the salt barn, I think it's gonna, the prices I've got back, it's gonna be somewhere around 65 or 70. But I think we also,
Got it.
from TML, I'm sorry,
Oh, and we got a check.
yeah, for 30, 32, 33,000. And, that would go towards it,
So really,
So you can probably reduce that to 45.
yeah.
Okay, so reduce.
And I think the concrete, that's about, so the roof and stuff, I think the concrete was like 40,000, 42,000, I think, to build the walls and the bottom part. The 60,000 for the shed equipment, I think I've talked with Phyllis, she was saying that would be a fixed asset that I was hoping that we could all split. And she said, with it being a fixed asset, that we couldn't do that. But I think Michael's gonna put it on his for this year. And then maybe a year or so down, we'll put it on ours.
we're
So you
marking
can take
off
that,
the
you can
street.
mark that off, yes. the air boards is something Bruce and I have been talking about that the city actually needs. They can be used for any of the parades we have, Old Timers Festival. The chief, he could use them in, maybe some of the DUI checkpoints, I don't know, some wrecks or anything, a major wreck that, you know, we need to get the traffic over. And that's, you know, that is one of the better ones. And that's two of them, that's two air boards for $38,000. It's all digital, LED. But that's just, I mean, we always have to go borrow them. I think a couple of years we borrowed them from Smyrna. I know 1 year for Old Timers Festival, I believe I borrowed 2 from Metro. That's just something we need. The tractor, we could probably move it out some for a couple of years. But the salt barn definitely we got to have.
I
'Cause
know we have to have that.
I've done tore, it's got 2 block walls still standing, the roof and everything's on it, we've done tore it down, cut it up, got it piled up. Matter of fact, I'm gonna get Waste Management or somebody to bring me a dumpster
Yeah,
to
we
put
don't
it
have a
all
choice
in, cause
there.
we don't have, you know, or maybe we can haul it. I heard, the commissioner the other night say that, you know, they had the landfill up there that you could take wood and stuff too, so maybe we just put it on some trucks and carry it up there instead of having to pay for the dumpster. Because I'd say it's gonna be a dumpster full or more with all the wood that was in it. Any other questions?
What about the vehicle? The Ford
The F-150 Ford, yes. That was just going into our fleet. You know, we've got 2 or 3 older trucks. The one that I had, you know, we were gonna put it on Gov Deals here in July sometime, I think, when we put the rest of it on there. It's got 300,000 miles, and mine is used with snowplow and a spreader on it. And it can be used to pull our gooseneck trailer. We don't have the gooseneck fittings put in there, but that's just a minor amount of money to put that in and just have an extra vehicle in the fleet. I know everything's tight, but I request it, but if not, I'm satisfied.
One more year?
What do you think, Dennis? No, I mean, that's totally up to you.
Yeah.
If had to, yes, ma'am.
That black truck, that has improved.
Ma'am?
I said, that black truck has improved.
Well, it has. But I mean, like I said, you know, could we get by? Yes, we could. I'm not, you know, sit here and tell you I can't. We can do something.
Cause I'm adding as we go.
We've give up 2 or 3 trucks well, not only out of streets, but out of water and sewer both. We gave a couple, I think, up to water billing.
Yeah, I know there's been trucks having to be swapped around.
And that's what it's all about. I mean, that's what it's all about.
Yeah,
You know, we sacrificed, I mean, we went on with it. I mean, we didn't have a problem with it.
Moving on to fleet, the only item requested there was some tools to the tune of $5,000.
That's just for stuff that we might need tool-wise during the fiscal year. Unless something major comes up, I don't see anything major. It's gotta be bought out of the 5,000. But we do run into times where, you know, we've got tools, but sometimes you need, with these newer vehicles coming out, needing separate tools to work on them.
yeah.
They get the new cars, they get to sell the new tools to go with them.
They get us either way, don't they?
Yeah, that's true.
We can move on down to the police department. Just to highlight the expenses requested there, he's asked for 4 additional officers. Along with that is their equipment, which is vehicle, computer, clothing. The officer, the wages and benefits is $253. The equipment's $317,800. He's also asked for 6 additional new vehicles to a tune of $348,000, and then 5 additional spare radios, which to a tune of $33,500. He's requested $40,000 for fencing, $80,000 for video cameras, and then out of the drug fund, he's requested $30,000 for K-9 equipment and $20,000 for evidence room. Did I make those corrections on there?
You want me to tell you about each one, or do you have questions? Which would you prefer?
Well, the 4, I know. I know.
I understand, and
And I know
y'all
y'all.
understand why I asked.
Oh, I know.
There are 2 sides of me. There's a side of me that's the professional side, and what I need to tell you from the position I hold. The other side is I pay taxes here too. So there's that side of me. The issue we have now, we have 1.57 officers per 1,000 residents. I talked about that at the workshop. That's the reason I asked for that, so you all have an idea of where we were way back when and where we are today. The FBI's most recent report is 2012. The average number of sworn officers per 1,000 residents in the western southeastern states, which is us, Alabama, Mississippi, and I can't remember who else, is 2.4 for cities that are 25,000 to 49,999 population. If we actually had 2.4 sworn members per 1,000, that'd put us at 81 right now. So you see where we're going?
I see I have 200,000 to work with.
Yeah.
I understand, but I have to tell you that. If I
And I
don't
know.
tell you that, then I'm not doing my job, especially in light of what we know is coming to us.
But when that does that, then we'll be in a better position
But we're
for
gonna have to
these.
have that for just to handle
Yeah.
the influx and the additions that are gonna be going on right there. That doesn't cover the rest of the city. That's the reason you'll see as you go down through there for the next few years, those increases. And that's an increase all the way down through there. Now, when I plug it out there for the patrol officers, that's gonna give us about 20 more on the street. So that we have to help cover those shifts in those zones and the calls for service. Can you contract it? Go for it. Try it. Robert Arnold can't do it. It'll take as many people as we have or more, and it'll cost you more money. Because they make more than ours do. Math, simple math, pencil to paper. It ain't gonna happen. Question?
We can't do 4 this year.
The vehicles, where we're coming from with vehicles, we've got a situation now where we still have those older vehicles there. We spent over $24,000 from September to last month. Is that right?
Yes.
On 5 Chargers. Garland just told me when we walked in here that we just spent $700 having to take a Charger to a dealer because of the electronics. It came back, got the same problem again. The Chargers are absolutely eating us up. Impalas are not good patrol vehicles, the older ones particularly, they weren't built for it to hold up, but the Chargers are an absolute nightmare. So that's where I'm looking at there for replacement vehicles. We can't do that this year either, and I know that, but you all need to know where we are with that part. The portable radios, we have none for spare. If we have one destroyed, for whatever reason. This was one spare plus one for each of the four new that I requested because they need one. The storage and fencing is because we're seizing vehicles right and left legally. And we're full back here at the back where we did the new fencing. We got everything from the senior center and got the heat off of AC, but now we got them out here in front of the ball field.
Oh, the heat's still there, it's just something different.
Well, with the vehicles
I
anyway.
appreciate it, sir.
The vehicles anyway. But we got them out here with nothing protecting them. They're out in the open. And we need to do something to secure them down the road somehow, some way. The video cameras is because of unless it's one of the newer vehicles that has old cameras, we got some major issues with those old cameras because it cost us between, what, Ricky, $300-400 on the average each? Every time we have to send it to WatchGuard for repair, and this would retrofit all the vehicles that we have remaining that are out there in patrol that would put the new video system in rather than these old ones that we have. And that's everything the general fund. The other two are drug fund, adding a K-9. And that would come from the drug fund, not the general fund. And then the evidence room security and OSHA safety requirements, the issues we have there are, we didn't get to do it because we had to use right at $10,000 to do the electrical work for the new radio stuff that we're having to do now, so.
I got a question. Are there any grants out, like, you know how they, you got a grant for the county to hire the firefighters? And they pay it for so many years, and then you have to assure them that you keep them?
The COPS program is out there. It is available. They've reduced it now to the point to where there isn't much available at all. The ones that they have now, there were, and I can't remember, so I'm not even gonna try to quote a number. There were a lot of agencies in Tennessee that requested COPS grant funding 2 years ago or 3 years ago now. Murfreesboro's one that got some, a few others, a handful, but there's only like 10 or 12, if that many, in Tennessee that actually got it. There was a grant done from here before I got here when they did that, so I guess that was probably 2010 or 11. We're more than likely not gonna get COPS grant funding, to be honest with you.
I didn't.
Competing nationally, and that's a national competition.
Just a thought.
Yeah, and
That
we've
they could get us
looked,
through those years until, what we know's coming,
yeah,
we know what's here, we know we're here, we gotta get in between that middle until we get to the stuff that we know's coming.
Yeah, and along that line,
we get little items for various types of equipment, but we don't get necessarily big items generally. We ask.
along the line, you were just talking about, Mayor, when we do start receiving an extra sales tax and property taxes, we also, which is a couple of years out, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But we also have some debt service, vehicles, radio equipment, stuff that's gonna be dropping off. I think there's even another debt service that may
Yeah,
drop off around that time.
We
So,
talked about that,
you know,
so.
in about 3 years, we'll be in a lot better position to do some things, but for the next couple of years, we're just gonna struggle.
So what about CADCOR? CADCOR used to have a grant, CADCOR?
CADCOR has grant for various things. Mostly what we get from them, we get water for National Night Out. We get help with our drug take back by doing that. There's a possibility, Richard and I communicated with our alcohol stings we do. We had to come back last year, and it's in this year's budget too. 2,000, I think it is, for us to be able to do alcohol stings. We can't use drug fund money we can't use what we normally call buy money from the drug fund, and there was no provision in the budget, so when we started doing those, instead of trying to wait on ABC to do it, and they never contacted back, still haven't contacted from last year, and we've done 2 of them since that time. Richard did say, let me know, we'll try to see if we can help. There are some things that are there, but most of what CADCOR's involved with now is the drug court. It's there, and alcohol is one thing, but our drug fund is there to do things for us, and then the other part, there's not a whole lot there, not for the people anyway, the enforcement side of it. We might be able to get a little help pay for the overtime, possibly, but that's gonna be minuscule in light of the entire budget process.
I just thought at one time they had like personnel grants or add officers. I think it was Chief Boyd that
So much of that money's been cut too, though, Tom, from the feds. A lot of the money that paid for people has been cut tremendously. That's why the COPS program was cut back so much. You know, we could have probably gotten, at one time, funding for our crime intelligence analyst position to go in and look and crunch the numbers, where's it happening, what's happening, and so on and so forth. But not now. We might be able to get some training money for that, but it wouldn't be widespread. It would be whatever the cost of a course would be. Some of those things we can do, but the federal support has dried up tremendously.
We ready to move on?
Yeah.
Our next department we want to talk about is the fire department. And we have, of course, we have the second installment, which is $2 million, that will be due January 1st. Of course, we don't have to budget anymore for the 18 additional firefighters. We've got that in place now. There's $55,000 requested for a vehicle, $3 million for 3 75-foot quints, 1 100-foot tower truck for $1.2 million, 2 faster track trucks for $625,000, and of course the Station 3 addition. And you know, we've talked about issuing a bond on for the equipment. The $2 million will come out of our fund balance that we have already, that we have built up in our reserves. With that being said, we got to remember that even if we do bond out this equipment, we have that bond payment that will be due each year. So we got to make sure that we have that covered. Of course, it'll be a year and a half out, probably before we make the first installment, if we do a year in arrears, which will put us in a pretty good time frame for the additional sales tax and property tax. And we hope to start receiving.
Keep in mind too that if you look back on the general fund budget, there's $250,000 per year allotted out of general fund to operate fire for maintenance and upkeep on the current equipment that we have. Obviously that would drop substantially with that equipment. We were in excess of $200,000 of maintenance and repairs last year, and I can assure you with the extra running that we're doing now with EMS, the apparatus, the maintenance is going to be right there still. So we had allotted $250,000, and we did drop that back after this year. We did drop that back to $50,000. It could be even less than that.
For the
But there's some of that money right there to offset that cost in the bond. Also keep in mind that moving to the quick concept, which we talked about during the retreat, going to quick concept is how we're able to put this third shift on with the few personnel that we're hiring. Even offsetting it with volunteers and all of that. If we don't go with quick concept, and we go with conventional response, and we go with engine and ladders, then we're gonna need more personnel, and obviously that's where the cost falls in. So we've looked at these numbers backwards and forwards about 10 different directions, and no matter which way you go, it always works back to about the same thing. So
If we ordered these today, they're not gonna be here for 18 months, you can bet, you
the
can
two
count on
fast
that.
tracks, you're looking at fast attack trucks, you're looking at 6 to 8 months for them to get here, a little bit quicker on those. The quick turnaround now on the aerials, is looking at about 12 months.
Have we gotten back all the bids on those?
We have not, the bids are out, they close, I think, yeah. So, we'll have good numbers. The numbers that are here are a little higher than, we did get some estimated, we got some estimates back. We added and we built in a little extra right here, because you never know what it's gonna go with interest rates and things like that. So we did add some in. These numbers are, I can tell you, a little high there. But we wanted to put what we knew would cover the cost there, especially dealing with the bond issue. But it's one direction or the other. You add personnel on to run the conventional ladder, engine concept. You're gonna leave $250,000 a year maintenance and upkeep on the current equipment that we have. That I can tell you right now, I have 2 ladder trucks right now that are in the shop. We don't have an aerial here right now.
But
They're both in the shop right now.
But they both need to be replaced, they're both 2 of them.
They're correct. And all of our equipment, with the exception of the last engine we bought, it's still 1 year in NFPA compliance. There's nothing else in the fire department right now that's within NFPA standard. And it's not gonna get any better. The city's getting bigger, we're answering more calls. The fast attack trucks, some people say, well, what's this fast attack truck that we're talking about? These are to take the place and run some of these medical calls and smaller calls, grass fires, car fires, things like that, where we don't have to run these bigger pieces of equipment.
More of a support unit.
More of a support unit, correct. So I assure you, we have looked and looked and looked and discussed, myself, Chief Clark, Chief Culberson, talked at length with Bruce about all of these things. Quint concept is the direction for us to go. I think even MTAS agreed that going Quint concept is the best way for us to move forward. The equipment we have is just not gonna hold up though. As I said right now, we have 3 aerials in the city limits of Laverne. 2 of them right now are sitting in a shop. We're having to borrow one for our agility test tomorrow. It is what it is. And I know those are big numbers, and just keep in mind, this is equipment that has good longevity. We're not talking about a piece of equipment that gets replaced in 5 years. We're talking about pieces of equipment that gets replaced in 15 to 20 years. So, I know the numbers are huge, but it's not like buying an SUV. It's a little bit different. I wish it was that easy.
And Ricky, I think you mentioned it before, you might have covered it, what do you feel like the suppliers of this equipment are going to require from the city when we make a purchase or place the order? Are they going to require any money up front, or?
In talking, obviously, we were looking at going with self-incorporation. Our bid guidelines are kind of drawn with self-incorporation because of it's excellent equipment. It's going to last us. I do know that under their financing, the way they do their financing and everything that has to do with self-incorporation is you can put down what you want or you can put down 0. We based everything off of 0 down.
0 down payment.
And of course, anything that it's like anything else. You go to buy a car, the more you put down, the more it'll bring down your issue and your bond.
But these numbers are straight out buying.
That's correct. That's correct. These numbers are straight out buying. These would be the cost of the apparatus if you paid cash for it.
Which technically for bonding, that's what we're,
Correct.
right, as far as the equipment.
Correct. And like I said, these are a little bit inflated, but not a whole lot. The numbers that came back with financing on the 75-foot Quints, they're running right around $985,000 apiece with the financing on it. And I think that was financing on a 12 or a 15-year note, so. Not far off. When you start, give and take a little bit there, when you start talking $985,000, $15,000, that could be a hubcap.
But the thing is, correct me if I'm wrong, if you don't do the quint, where you get the benefit of pumper and ladder,
All in one.
then you're gonna wind up having to buy 2 additional ladders.
Correct.
You have no place to put 2 more of
Correct.
them.
And that's the other thing is
So the quint's a
spacing.
multi-purpose.
The personnel is the big issue though, as I explained during the retreat. If you go standard response with the engine company, ladder company, to get maximum ISO credit, that's 10 personnel to staff those 2 trucks. With Quint Concept, you get full credit for 4 men on that piece of equipment. That's 6 people. Y'all sit up here every day and you look at what payroll costs you and benefits cost you. So those 6 people will more than pay for the cost of the bond issue on going Quint Concept. Not to mention we have a shortage of place to put all this equipment to begin with. That's the reason that we're surplusing some equipment. People are asking, why are you surplusing equipment? Well, one, we have nowhere to put this equipment. We've had $1 million hazmat trailer sitting outside for 3 years that we probably need $30,000 worth of repairs on because it's been sitting outside. That piece of equipment's sitting indoors now. So that's the reason that we're getting rid of the equipment that we are getting rid of. One, it served no purpose for ISO credit. We had reserve trucks sitting here that served no use whatsoever for ISO points, none. The majority of the reason, and the only one that I could see that we had so many pieces of equipment while it was privatized is because we were juggling equipment back and forth to the maintenance shop. Same thing we're doing right now. And back to the one, the $55,000 one vehicle that's in there. We did hire 2 assistant chiefs. Chief was gracious enough to give us an old patrol car, but it's exactly that. It's got a new motor and transmission in it, but obviously it's not gonna hold up. We're gonna make it last as long as we possibly can. We're gonna hold on to it and use it as long as we can, but that other vehicle is for the other assistant chief. And we're gonna keep the Crown Vic. That's what he's currently in right now. That Crown Vic will be used for firefighters going to classes. If one of our vehicles do go down, we need something to be able to go over into and operate out of. Because as you know, the private fire would not sell there. One of the vehicles belonged to me, rest in peace now, and the other 2 vehicles that belonged to the private fire, they would not sell. So we ended up with no staffing vehicles at all, and that was the reason for that.
I'll give you some Chargers.
We won't get rid of those Chargers.
We're gonna use those for training burns later down the road. That's
Extrication.
Okay, we've heard the discussion from the fire department, so we'll move on to the Parks and Rec. This is our last department of the day. The Parks and Rec department has requested a mower, a 60-inch commercial mower at $15,970. 2 mowers, I'm sorry, 2 mowers. $250,000 worth of repair work for the senior baseball field. $10,000 to be transferred to Heritage Park. If approved, a full-time maintenance person at $50,000, a Kubota tractor at $24,220, dirt and safe coat at $6,000, a laser grader $3,500, 5 extra sections of stage to help out with the Old Timers Festival and other events as needed, $4,500 for a generator, $3,500 for a storage shed, and he would like to increase his overtime by $3,000.
Be 7,
With the
because I'm
overtime?
allotted 7 right now, and we have 20 events in the park, and it's just, I'm going over like crazy, and I don't want to do that, but
Additional 7 besides the 7 you have? Is that what
Yeah.
you're saying? Okay, sorry.
that's all right. Yeah, because with all, I mean, most of our events take place after hours anyway, so, and we set them up and then we tear them all down, and then we have all the ball tournaments and everything else, and it's just, the overtime is an issue, or it has been, I mean, so, everything else that's on here, we talked about the maintenance guy at the retreat. I mean, I think the fire department will back in on this. It would expedite things like you can't even imagine if we had our own guy to do it in-house, that he had the qualifications to do it. We wouldn't have to go get bids and wait for people to respond and everything else. It'd be something we could jump on immediately. But the way it is right now, you know, it's chasing your tail a lot of times, and like that water heater upstairs, that needed to be done that day, you know, or at least get started on it. So that's the big ticket thing that I'm asking for. And I mean, we've talked about a maintenance department for the last couple of years, and I'm thinking that's a baby step toward it, if we can do that.
All these buildings now.
I know, and we're just
I
getting
mean,
more and more.
we're spinning our wheels.
Yeah.
And they
We
do,
got-
we tied them up for 3 weeks straight.
I mean, literally, we put everything else on the back burner because we knew they needed us that bad. And I mean, I gotta give kudos to my guys. They have busted their butt and done, you know, all that they can do. And now it's mowing season
Oh, I
and
know.
ball season. So that just,
What, okay, can we move this Kubota?
the tractor,
Yeah.
let's move something else. That tractor, I'm telling you, that I have two that don't make one good one. And that thing, I think I drove one of them when I was a kid. I don't know how y'all ended up with it, but it is, I mean, them things are old.
Okay, the 250 for the senior ball field. I know we did some work last year, now what, I know.
We did 50,000 on adult baseball. This was my predecessor. I don't know how that got like that.
Okay.
If we're, depending on what we're gonna do, I mean, everything is up in the air because me and Bruce talked about it the other day.
Yeah.
If we're gonna put 2 ball fields up there, I hate to dump a bunch of money back there, you know?
Yeah,
I mean, we do need to spruce it up a bit. We've redone the field. We
Yeah.
resodded it and leveled it and, you know, graded it out. But it doesn't do a lot of good. We need fences and backstops back there. And if we're gonna spend, we don't need 250,000 back there.
Let me tell you something, from being there
I know your kids.
with a
yeah.
young'un
Yeah.
that helps coach and me going and watching them, that green block building behind it is the one that's the worst part back there, to be honest
I
with you.
know.
It's
Yeah.
horrendous.
And what bothers me about that is we're fixing to get a greenway through here. So you're gonna have a nice trail and a new bathrooms down there and everything else, and then you don't want it to look crappy right over here, you know what I mean? So,
We got our work cut out for us, you and Bruce.
We gotta figure out how to stretch $200,000
Yeah, I
to the
know,
tune of 2 to 3 million.
I know. Okay. I mean, really, y'all done good, because we've asked y'all to be, all of the departments have, be patient this year, next year. I mean, y'all been good.
and if we can continue, I mean, Phyllis had put down 3,000 on the overtime. Obviously 7, I'm still gonna be close, but if we shave a little bit off that and maybe knock that back to 3, and I'll give up the generator and borrow from David Seals again at Old Timers Festival. And, but I really need the tractor. And we can sell the other 2 on Gov Deals and maybe make 1,500. I don't know. They're in pretty bad shape.
In the meantime, we're still, stats is still looking DRMO of what's out there. The problem we get into, a lot of them are 3-phase.
Right. And we can do
But he's still looking
modifications.
every
We can get
day.
David to do modifications to them. But then again, that goes back to also if we had that maintenance person and he's qualified, if he has, you know, certifications in electrical and plumbing, and there are a lot of guys out there that do that are looking for work right now.
Yeah.
We have one in mind. They can come in, and if that's all they do, then we're gonna be doing maintenance work every day instead of trying to
Oh,
split
there's
it
no
between
doubt.
ball fields and mowing grass and all the other stuff that we do, you know?
Well, there's a lot of things coming back to us. We'll keep looking every day too, because Eric knows what we need
I've talked to Eric
to be
several
over
times,
there,
yeah.
so. And with those items, we can keep them a year. When I say we being LPD, we can keep them a year and then we can assign them to another
Right.
city department. But we're over there, it's a security issue, so we can get them and use them over there You follow me? I mean, we're legal in doing it, so.
Well, y'all be patient with us and let us work our numbers. You know we want to say yes to everything for everybody. You know that. Unfortunately, this year, it is gonna be tight. But let's work our magic. And, we're gonna try to give your absolute very basic needs, which you've got to have to function. And, let us review over that. And again, y'all know when we're going into this, we did say, hang with us. Hang with us this year. We got to make an announcement, but we ain't got that done yet. But, we'll be back here next
Next
Thursday.
Thursday, we'll be doing all the other funds, which is, your State Street Aid, your drug fund, your seniors, water and sewer, your capital projects, parks and streets, which we don't have a lot going on anymore, so I think everything will go pretty quick except for water and sewer.
Well, if we do that, and if we have some time by then, we may have looked at the general fund numbers and come back with our counter offer to you guys. And maybe can work on that again, just a little bit, tweak it, say, can you work with us on this if we can do this and all that. So we'll be working on that this next week, and if we can get to it next week, say, hey, here's our offer, can we live with this?
Yeah.
Is that okay with all y'all?
Yeah.
For next week, but Krista and I were talking, I said, we think we're spending right at $300,000 a year for NES, in Middle Tennessee Electric. With putting up the lights on Waldron and accepting these subdivisions. I think we accepted one last year.
We haven't done any this year, have we?
But, it's coming, that's what I'm saying, and it's
It's
gonna be
coming down
adding
the
and
road.
adding to it, and I think we've got 300 budgeted for it, and it's getting right there at it. And she and I were talking about it the other night, about we need to come up with something. She was talking, we'd get together and talk one day, something maybe we could do, because that's expensive. I just want to bring it up real quick on this thing.
Yeah, because you are right, we've had to add to those. Okay, do I have any questions? Anybody want to ask anybody any questions, any comments, or? That being said, I thank all of you for your time. It didn't hurt too bad. I call this budget hearing closed.